Okay, so we just last did aerobic respiration, so we were talking about the fact that respiration has two different types, aerobic and anaerobic. Okay, so I talked about the fact that aerobic needed oxygen. Okay, I also talked about the fact that aerobic has 4 different stages. We talked about glycolysis, talked about the formation of acetyl-CoA. We talked about Krebs cycle, and we talked about the electron transport chain. Okay, so one thing I need to note, I kind of screwed up a little bit there. So glycolysis, you've got 2 ATP being produced. Acetyl-CoA, you've got none. Krebs, you've got no ATP being produced, but you've got those electron carriers. Okay, glycolysis, you've got 2 ATP, as it says before, and for the electron transport chain, basically you use the carriers and you're getting about 36 ATP being produced. So this number is actually debated how much actual ATP is produced for the electron transport chain. They've kind of tried to do some tests on it, but it's still a little bit kind of in the air right now. Alrighty, so basically what I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk about anaerobic. Okay, so anaerobic is without oxygen. I said that earlier. Okay, so a lot of bacteria use this form of respiration. So if you think about it, bacteria that live in your gut has limited, almost no oxygen in it. So the bacteria that are living in your gut, they've had to evolve to be able to live in an environment without oxygen. Okay, so we know that aerobic respiration, you need oxygen, and that comes in during the electron transport chain and binds to produce H2O. So that's where the byproduct H2O comes in. So if I quickly just draw that equation again, C6H12O6. Okay, so that's glucose plus oxygen goes to carbon dioxide, which comes out of the Krebs cycle, plus water, which comes out of the electron transport chain. Okay, so, and then this is coming in and during glycolysis. Okay, and the oxygen is important in the electron transport chain. Okay, so that is aerobic respiration kind of done and dusted. Now, if we're talking about anaerobic respiration, we're not talking about any oxygen. So what happens is you've still got your glucose, okay, but you've got no oxygen. Okay, so there's 2 different things that can happen. So, well, there's quite a lot of different things that can happen, but there's 2 that I'm going to kind of talk about. You shouldn't really be asked to do anything other than this. Okay, so basically we start with the same sugar, glucose, okay? So they've probably got that from their food, alright, or from photosynthesis somehow. Okay, so basically we've got our glucose being produced, and what you'll end up with is, in one of the cases, you could get lactic acid. So humans get this, so when you go for a run and you use up all of your oxygen, you go for a sprint. So after a while, you're not going to be able to breathe enough in that short amount of time to keep reproducing, keep going through aerobic respiration. So your body starts going into anaerobic respiration, and that produces lactic acid, and that's what gives you a cramp when you do exercise. Okay, so lactic acid is produced, and you've also, what have you got there? Yeah, plus a little bit of energy. Okay, same with down here, so you get this kind of similar. So without oxygen, you get alcohol being produced instead, and that's a byproduct. Same with the lactic acid. With the alcohol, you'll get carbon dioxide produced as well, and again, a little amount of energy. Okay, so organisms can still use this, and often they'll have other pathways. So they'll start with the sugar, And there's a number of different pathways that organisms can use to kind of increase the amount of energy they get from the glucose. Okay, but it's not gonna get as much as the oxygen, because the aerobic respiration is by far the most efficient for being able to extract cellular energy from the glucose molecule. Okay, so basically the moral of the story is aerobic respiration gives you a much higher yield of energy, and so that energy is in the form of ATP, whereas anaerobic respiration, it doesn't give you as much energy. Often there's harmful byproducts, and not many animals can actually survive just doing anaerobic respiration. Okay, most do, maybe will use it. So humans use aerobic respiration most of the time. We can go into anaerobic respiration, however we can't sustain that. So that's why when you go sprinting, you sprint as much as you can, and you stop and you're breathing lots. Okay, so you're paying back your oxygen debt, and that oxygen comes in and it basically takes away the lactic acid and stops your blood from being so acidic, so you don't get cramp so much. Okay, so basically that's what you're going to be if you're asked to write an equation. Okay, that's kind of similar to what I would write. Alcohol plus carbon dioxide plus a little bit of energy, and you'll probably also get maybe a little bit of heat being produced as well. Okay, this one here is used for brewing, so that one there is used for beer making or carbon dioxide or whatever. So yeast use these a lot, fungi. Whereas this one's common in bacteria and, in humans and things. Okay, so that is anaerobic respiration. I would say that you would have to normally get a question more on aerobic respiration than anaerobic respiration. I guess something that they might ask you about anaerobic respiration is the fact that for anaerobic respiration, so you've got those 4 different stages that I've got here. So for aerobic, you've got glycolysis, acetyl-CoA, Krebs cycle, and electron transport chain. Whereas for anaerobic respiration, you only go through glycolysis. Okay, so therefore you don't need oxygen. You don't have water being produced, and normally, because you're not going through the Krebs, you're still, some anaerobic respiration does give off CO2, but it's coming from a different space. It's not coming from the Krebs cycle, because the Krebs cycle's not going, because it's anaerobic respiration. Only glycolysis. Okay, so now we're going to talk about, so that'll be your first part of your question. If you get a question on respiration, you'll have to explain what respiration is. It'll hopefully be anaerobic respiration, but you might have to talk about aerobic. It'll hopefully be aerobic respiration, not anaerobic respiration, but it could be either. So you're going to have to talk about the rate again. So we talked about the rate of photosynthesis, so this time it's rate of respiration. Okay, so very similar. So if you think about the equation, so if you think about aerobic respiration, you've got the glucose plus oxygen goes to carbon dioxide and water. And these are both really super fine for the cell. The cell will just get rid of those, so that's what you breathe out, and then you pee that out, or your cells will use it. Alright, so rate of respiration. So obviously, if you think about, if you're asking to do a question on rate of respiration, I would write the equation out. Just have a look at the equation. Okay, so if you've got higher amounts of oxygen, obviously respiration is going to go ahead faster. If you've got lots of glucose, obviously the reaction is going to go ahead faster. So higher substrate concentration, or what is it called? The reactant concentration is going to increase the rate of respiration. Okay, basically you're going to get a higher rate of respiration with a higher temperature up to a point. Okay, so we've got this graph again. So as we increase the temperature, if you think about it, these reactions are all regulated by enzymes, And enzymes are really super sensitive to temperature. Okay, so what you're going to have is you're going to have an optimum temperature again. So there's an optimum temperature for respiration. Okay, so this is the rate of enzyme activity. So as temperature increases towards the optimum, it's going to get faster because the molecules have got more kinetic energy. Okay, getting up to a point, and then obviously if it gets hotter, if it gets too hot for the enzymes are going to denature, and respiration is not gonna really go ahead much, because you need enzymes for all those different arrows that we talked about before. So lots of enzymes. If you ruin your enzymes, if you denature your enzymes, then respiration is not going to occur very fast at all. Optimum temperature, so in humans, probably be about 37 degrees, because that is our body temperature. Alright, so anything really that affects enzymes will affect the rate of both respiration and photosynthesis. So things like pH, the presence of toxins, etc. That's going to affect the rate of the rate of the respiration. Okay, something else that you might have to talk about. If you are, say, athlete, you're going to have higher energy demands, so the rate of respiration in your cells will increase. And so not only will the mitochondria be turning over the glucose more quickly, so the rate will increase, but also if you're an athlete and you've been, had high energy demands for a while, what will happen is the mitochondria will increase in your cells. So your cells, if you compared it to someone that didn't do exercise, their cells would have a lot more mitochondria in them because they have a higher energy demand. Therefore, their respiration rate is faster because they've got more mitochondria. Their mitochondria are working better, probably working faster than someone that doesn't do the exercise. Okay, so you'll find in the muscle tissues of anyone, really, you're going to have more mitochondria compared to, say, a tissue that doesn't have as higher energy needs. So maybe something like, what's a good example? Well, if you think about different types of muscles, so maybe a muscle that's, in on your back as opposed to, in your thigh. If you're a runner, then obviously your thigh muscles are going to have a lot more mitochondria than your back muscles are. Okay, so that's another thing that's going to increase energy demands, and obviously the people that are the athletes, it's going to be the same aerobic respiration. Okay, but you'll probably find that they actually will uptake oxygen at a better rate than someone that, say, doesn't do any exercise or things. So increasing the oxygen will increase the rate of the photosynthesis. Okay, having more to eat. If you've starved yourself, obviously you're not going to have that much energy. Okay, so your rate of respiration is going to drop, and you'll end up with less ATP, and that'll make you not have any energy and things. Okay, so basically gone through all of those. You might have to compare photosynthesis and respiration, so compare and contrast. So you talk about the fact that both of them have enzymes, both of them, occur in an organelle. You talk about the fact that they both require ATP. They're both sensitive to temperature. They're both sensitive to the amount of products and reactants that there are. However, you'd maybe note that photosynthesis only happens in plants, whereas respiration happens in both plants and animals. And you talk about the fact that respiration has two different types. Okay, so there's other things you need to know about that. So I'd go back and have a look at your notes, go back and have a look at your textbooks. So next one is going to be DNA structure and replication.